I'm on my way to see a friend's antique store, but I saw a barn sale sign and I'm pulling over to see what it is first.
Definitely looks like a real barn. Ooh, Harley Davidson. They got a lot of stuff here. Old Photo Lab truck, and this is a sweet statement that I've seen before. These singers are pretty good if you had a Bernita. Those are even better. Old washboard. And a later edition Easy Bake Oven. I already have one of those for sale.
How are you this afternoon?
Good. How are you doing?
Have you been to a sale before?
I haven't, actually.
Everything along this entire back road that runs the width, everything is just $1.
Okay.
Anything else, we'll just throw a number at you.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Find something you really want to come to them.
Looks like an old violin. Oh yes, and the Coolidge print. Dog's playing poker. Nice little magazine rack there. They're good as end tables too. Old Lincoln logs that are actually made of wood, but they have the plastic pieces, so that's from my era.
Or already angry. Just angry. See the design.
Kikikini pipe. Mitterreich, another interesting German company. And that is 1970s for sure. Utility lantern, we see a lot of those. Lots of bits. Shot tools. Useful stuff. Interesting little center handle sign, so the enamelware piece. Nice and heavy too. Royal Worcester towards the end of their production. Done for Danbury Mint. I didn't realize they produced for them. It's a nice pattern though. No turquoise, but it's got a look. Mikasa, yeah, this is from about 1980. Meadow Melody. This would have been at some kid nursery in the 70s, judging by the color. Ooh, that's a big price. And I think we've reached the end of the line, but boy, they've got a lot more stuff. I like that dresser back there. Nice carved piece of furniture. Well, newer pottery. One Mexican bird. Little worn though. India brass, not really well detailed in the eyes though. Old Lionel train set. One of the ones you would put under the Christmas tree, not one of the more serious collector ones. Now, is this an old one that's been redone in the 70s? Yes, but they antiqued it. The daisies are cute. The finish is a tough thing to fix, though. Well, I bought a few things. She looked everything up on Etsy, but then she divided by about a third. And you know what? Her prices were fine. I asked for a little off on a couple of things, and she agreed. So I paid $5 for the bracelet. It's just faux, but it's got the look. It's the Royal Worcester vase, which actually is nicely made. I paid $10. Big enamel piece in the great blue color. That bright blue does sell better. And it's nice and heavy and older, and the ox-center handles are interesting. I paid $15 and $8 for the washboard.
I had the best intentions when I started this video. I was going to take you to a little town that's turning into an antique destination and introduce you to my mentor in the antique business, which I hope to do someday. But I made a wrong turn and wandered way off on a place called Key Peninsula in Washington, which sticks way down into Puget Sound, and there's one way in and one way out. And on my way in, well, since I can't get to the other place now, I saw this place. This cute little clapboard-sided cluster of stores here includes Angel Guild Thrift Shop, and since we have a sudden divergence in plans, well, we're just going to do some thrifting and garage sailing and freestyling today. We'll look at the community bulletin board and see if there's any sales that we should be hitting. There's a book sale right next door here. I might take a look at that for a minute. For sale, free rocker with ottoman. Well, free is a good price. That looks okay. Nice that they use the proceed locally.
Okay. Okay, these must be for the dog. Oh, those are for Rick.
Nice little daguerreotype. $40 is probably about right. If there's Civil War or the woman's educated and holding a book or something, those can be more in certain clothing. She does have great hair. Nice turquoise bracelet, but $200 is pretty much retail, and so is that amber costume set.
Do you need the bag? No.
The millionth Thunderbird in 1972. Not a great year for Thunderbirds. That's when they got rather large.
You got one me or two? Oh, one.
Art Deco box with the dogs is cute. John Price pottery. I like that crystalline glaze. There's a glass eye studio paperweight. That's nice, but really everything is priced at retail so far. We may do better when we get away from the collectibles case. Here's our housewares. These green stems from the 80s I always thought were an attractive proportion, but they're not super collectible. Violets and pansies do better than some other ones, and this one's hand-painted Japan from the 50s, only 50 cents, so that's a good deal. English. False-graph villager platter. Japanese cup and saucer. The black is good. Ooh, this is Royal Gouda. Later Royal Gouda from the 30s, 40s, 50s when they were doing the floral patterns. Oh, if it didn't have that chip, that would be a bargain. Bertino. Nice pattern. I've had the candlesticks before and they sold. Again, the stuff they recognize is not cheap. This is $20. Knowles utility wear in the fruit pattern. Portugal. Trivets are fairly new, probably 70s or 80s, with that very shiny finish, and this sort of almost bamboo-like pattern is Japanese. Frankoma, it's a good color, fairly common piece, but $1 each. I think I could pick up 2 of those. That's a little toasting pair. I don't really do odd numbers in dinnerware because I figure people are serving in 2s or 4s or 6s. That has a studio signature, but nothing I think is significant. Cordon Bleu. I definitely see this out there, and it seems like good quality. I think it's 80s. I think that's something that people may start collecting. You know what? I hate to leave one, though. I just broke my own rule, but they're only $1 each. We'll go in here, and we see a big old handmade rocker there. That's been priced down to the point where it's only $5. It'd be a nice thing. You could use it for magazines or kindling. It doesn't just have to be for a baby. I realize it's a little low for someone to actually rock unless they're using their foot. These all seem like newer ceramics, but we'll take a look to be sure. This is a studio piece, but not signed. $5 is a good price. I could imagine Laura Caldwell buying this on Left Coast Revivals just because she could style with it and the colors are good. This is Italian, I bet. $5 on that. Not a bad price. Very thin, though. Some of this just isn't really... It's kind of flimsy, and you wonder if it'll hold up as far as some of the Italian pottery, so I'm a little bit choosy with it. On their back porch, oh, there's a donation shed. Okay. So that's how that works. I guess the donations come in there and then they process them into the store. So I don't think it's supposed to be out here. Lazy Susan, but they want $25 on that. And it's contrast, but it's sort of neutral colors. Probably by Marcia of California with that mark. Noritake Wild Ivy. This does not have a silver or gold rim, which makes it a little more functional, and $15 for 43 pieces. Oh. What a deal. Now the rosé, a little harder to use because it won't microwave, and people are afraid of dishwashers with those rims because they wear off. This is a piece we see time to time. It's a good shape. It's Franciscan's white stoneware, which was a fine china they had made in Japan, and this is the merry-go-round pattern. There are some collectors for this, but it's got a little crazing and a stain in the bottoms. I'm going to leave it. I see a cute 1940s flower base up here.
Little QN. These days, everything in Seattle costs more.
Some local small kiln, only $1. Let's see what they have in prints and such things. This one looks like it could have some age or interest. Can't really make out the date. Sappington. The matting makes me think 1980s. Let's see what it says on the back. Yes, it's a woodcut called Placid Day 1. Oh, this is from Hawaii. Well, we ought to check this out. Well, it is Hawaiian from the 80s or 90s, but there doesn't seem to be a secondary market for this artist, so I'm going to leave it.
Those turned out to be half off, so it was $1.62 for the 3 Frankoma little mugs. Since this is unintended shopping, everything is just a little bit of a gift. I've had comments in the past couple of weeks. I had one person say, "Oh, it seems like you're paying retail. Are you selling for above retail?" And I said, well, no, the pieces I bought actually were a bargain. They just looked expensive because I paid $50 for something that was worth $120, but still worth the money. On the other hand, I had someone else say, "Oh, you went to the thrift store and you left so many things I would have bought." And it's true. I have been in the business a while. I have a storehouse with a lot of stuff in it. So I do pass up things that I know other resellers will buy and make money on. And you know what? That's fine. There is enough in the world for all of us to prosper. And for all of us collectors to get the things that we really love.
Well, this'll be fun. We haven't shopped a book sale or a Friends of the Library sale before, and books are still pretty collectible if you are selective and you know your area. Let's take a look and see what they have. It seems to all be in this one room here. I am looking for things that were written before about 1970 typically, or I am looking for reference books that I think can help me learn about subjects and categories. I also look for regional pressings. I always look through cookbooks because a lot of people love old cookbooks. Here's a whole compendium here, and I understand all of the books are $1 each. And as a set, I think you could make money on these. I think they'd probably sell for $60 to $75. It is a lot to ship and it takes up a lot of space. That's the flip side of books, but I know resellers who do nothing but books and they make a living doing it. I also realize I'm starting to get hungry, so these may be looking better than they really are. It's nice of whoever donated it to have told us that it is missing one volume, which is soup and salad. Otherwise, it's complete. You could go on eBay and fill your set and then sell it as a set. All right, let's see what we have over here. Oh, now this is cool. See, this is where knowing your region is helpful. This is Superior Publishing. They did Northwest-related titles in the Seattle area and sold them in the Northwest. And they all sell for a decent amount of money here. I think Superior went out of business in the 70s. Usually anything by them sells for about $15. You can see there's an old price tag on there. So somebody valued this book at one time, and there are a lot of people who like maritime history. I'll get this one. Media guides for sports teams usually don't sell for a ton of money unless it was a championship year, but looking at old sports publications definitely can be a place to find value in books. This is when Clyde Drexler played for the Portland Trail Blazers, and they were very good. A few years later, they were called the Jail Blazers because of some of the exploits of their players, and that team was soon broken up. They've done a nice job separating these by subject and putting the spines where you can really go through them quickly, which is nice because there are a lot of books in here. Pilchuck, oh, that might be about the glass artists. And then here's something that I will find fun, I'm sure, An Irreverent Guide to Washington State. This is probably something from about the time I first moved to Seattle. That should have some pretty good stories about the way things were then. I think you have to be a local history wonk to want something like this, but this would just be fun reading for me, so I think I'll get it. And there's Washington State in all its glory. And right now we are there. History books can be of value and then some less so. Some of these that are parts of larger library sets, again, sets can sell, so if you're filling in a set, that can be a useful thing. Again, remember, these are only $1. Centennial by James Michener. I really enjoyed that book. There is a 1970s book illustration if I've ever seen one. But the book that really interests me in this section is this one on heraldry and regalia of war. As an appraiser, I have been called on to appraise several military collections. And this seems like it covers a whole bunch of different eras and everything from headgear to medals and medallions and weaponry. And there are a lot of people who collect these things. There's a lot of value to these things. And there is a lot of history to these things. So I think this could be a useful book for me to have. And again, it's only $1. For the most part, novels and paperbacks are of low value. From Here to Eternity, however, was such a famous book, and this is a Signet edition. I've noticed that with some of the mystery books, the Signet books actually will sell. So lest you think books are not of interest to people, well, this is well into the afternoon. This sale's been going on all day, and look at all the people who are here. So yes, some books still sell. Art books are another good thing to look at. This one looks interesting because it has to do with some sort of design quarterly from the early 50s, and it looks like it's really emphasizing Japanese design. And apparently it is based on some sort of a display that was done in a museum in Minnesota of Japanese design around 1951. And it's interesting, especially here in the Northwest, Japanese modernism really ended up permeating a lot of the architecture as well as a lot of the houseware designs in this area. It wasn't just Scandinavian modern here, so this could be a useful reference for designers and collectors. Look at those great hair picks. And some of the very modern looking pieces in lacquerware and ceramics that were coming out from Japan in the early 1950s, based on traditional styles and even styles of kokeshi dolls that are very collectible now, as well as some pots that look more ancient than they are. I have something very similar to this, and I've been wondering what era it was. Well, this tells me it's 1950s, not 1850s, so that is actually pretty helpful. And look at these really cool 1950s industrial designs, barware, little radios, fans, television sets. This is when Japan is starting to become a manufacturing powerhouse. They are taking over the camera market. A lot of these are very collectible pieces now. And here we see them in their origin. There's the spy camera. Aw, and cute little tiny cars that back then Americans would never dream we would want to drive, and now we do.
Purdy is little more than a little wide spot in the road, but it is famous for having the women's prison here in Washington. And, well, I've spent a little time there in the outlet center in Centralia, and we would look for small Northwest manufacturers to represent. Turned out that Coldwater Creek was having all sorts of robes made by the women at the Purdy Correctional Institute. It was a way to train them to have a skill after they got through their incarceration. They were really good quality. I had one for years. It didn't dawn on me for a long time that all of them were made in stripes, so that way they couldn't make themselves an outfit and sneak out. There's our destination, the Save Thrift Store Peninsula Proud. This is another one that I suspect does things for local communities here. There's our discounts for the day. Proceeds for Peninsula High School graduates. I have a friend whose kids went to Peninsula High School. We'll take a quick look at ties out here before we go in. You look like your sort of regular standards. I like this pattern. A Neo-Deco from the 1980s. Those are colors and a style I would have worn at the time. And made in Italy, probably a pretty decent tie, actually. Newer kid stuff. Hello, kitty.
Happy Easter.
Good, how are you? This artist seems familiar to me. Something whimsical for a kid's room. I don't think it's really important, but I like it. There's some silver leaf, and one piece we don't see so much is the ice bucket. I think I would take that for $4. Kind of a fun set here.
No es una blusita.
Pinecroft is a fairly obscure pottery that's still in business. It's been family run since the 1940s, and I think the current generation took over in the 70s. It's in Aylmer in Ontario. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I've never been there. But they have several pieces, and some of them seem interesting. I think the tray for $3 is mid-century enough to try, except it does have some scratches. But I love the set of plates. Look at the triangles. That could be really fun. I feel like I need to own this. You've got ramekins, the salt and pepper shaker, the tray, and then these triangular dishes. But I honestly think, I really like the tray. It's just a little worn, but I really think the dishes are great. Oh, but look at that. When they displayed it, they broke one. Well, this is why you don't tape stuff together and slam it down, folks. Well, that's frustrating. Promo items are things that they've had on Facebook Marketplace, but they do start to discount them if they don't sell. There's Lennox Citation, a nice pattern. Again, if you don't mind the gold, it's beautiful. It's plain, it's simple, it's got a design. Irish coffee mugs from about 1970. Bunch of that hexagonal ironstone. The Independence ironstone from Japan, $50. That was popular in the 70s and early 80s. United States Congress. Your tax dollars at work. Lots of clothes, but there are some things on top of the clothes, including this oddly festive group of animals. Franciscan fine china, again, the silver rim, but a very sweet, planed pattern, and their fine china was made in the U.S. It's very good quality. Not as many people collected it as the dinnerware back in the time, but it is really well made. Basic glassware, I don't really see anything collectible in those patterns. Same with the cookware. Don't see any old pottery. But hey, we found something here. And this is a cute little piece. This is a handled nappy. And it has nice little painting. Probably done by somebody after the fact. I'm sure they bought it as a blank and did this in the 1920s. They didn't take credit for their works. Really should, folks. If you do something, if you make it or you craft it, you style it, you restyle it, let us know who you are so future generations can enjoy the fact that you did it and maybe know a little bit more about it. Oh, the old stool is not for sale. That's my favorite thing in here. Little chrysanthemum wooded box for $6. This is missing its stopper. It is bohemian, though. Jewelry looks sort of newish. There is some Port Marion. I like the reticulation, the pierce work in it, and Belique cream and sugar, and the Boston's head.
These are cute up here, these little tiny occupied Japan vases.
So your stuff's all over there. Have a good day.
Curious about this studio pottery piece. I'm going to have to look at that.
All right, I can take you.
Hanky screwdrivers. And I kind of like those little bowls with the music. We'll see what those are tubes. Little egg-shaped salt and peppers. Okay, these are different than I thought. These are made in Denmark by one of the smaller companies. Cute though. Oh, I see their little magazines. Packy and Pokey, and they both ran away. Shame on them. Well, that was fun. I did get this, and I learned about a new Canadian redware maker that's been around for a while that made some cool stuff I'm going to look for in the future. Well, I had just enough time to get my stuff in Tower Avenue Antiques, so the new finds are already there. We've got a little more thrifting we can do now that we're in the Centralia Chehalis area. But first, if you'll just take a minute to click that thumbs up to let YouTube and everybody know that you like this video, it really does help the videos when you participate. And if you subscribe, you can click the bell to be notified of all our future videos. We're right down the street from our next destination. Neat Indian motorcycle there. A cool 1930s Ford little pickup truck. And then I could not pass by without showing you the pink Edsel. This is a 1959 Ranger. That's actually where the Ranger for the Ford Ranger pickup truck line came from. They had to get something out of the Edsel. The Edsel was a great idea that didn't go very well, but look how beautiful this one is and what a fabulous color. A little more hot iron in this former Chrysler dealership that a friend of mine ran for years here in downtown Centralia. And the heavy Chevy, I think that's a 72 Chevelle. Another motorcycle in the back there, and this cute little classic for sale, a Ford Model A turned into a Roadster. Looks like late 20s, early 30s. We are just going to get in time to this place. I've never been here before. It's Community Thrift. Hopefully they're open the next 10 minutes that they say they are. Oh, they changed their hours. Darn. We missed them. Okay, we'll have to come back. Well, we have about 10 minutes in Chehalis, Washington in the Thrift Center thrift shop. And this is a place I haven't been since I was here with Stephanie from Thrifting Adventures. It seemed like the housewares were the thing to look for here. You have a bunch of these bells, but at $5 each, I don't think I can make anything on them. But it looks like they have the entire 50 State Flower Edition by Danbury Mint, made originally in Japan. That looks like a 1980s thing. But again, that's just going to be cost prohibitive, I'm sure. $6.99 on the cup and saucer. I seem to remember when Stephanie and I came here that the prices were not cheap and the selection wasn't amazing. So I don't know that we're going to find anything here, but we'll take a look. $7 for the little candlewick basket. These prices are not necessarily thrifty enough for me. $9 for the 4 of these. These are the ones made in Romania. Originally, this pattern was made in West Germany, and then they went to Romania in the early 1990s. So apparently, either type could look the same. Now, this I kind of like, and $6 is not a bad price. This might be Morgantown. At the very least, it has a very sleek mid-century look in the smoky blue color, which is attractive. These little guys look like they're Delft blue of some sort. Teapot here is Andrea by Sadek in the wildflowers pattern. I like some of the Andrea stuff. This honestly is just sort of like a lot of other things to me. This has an old-fashioned look, especially that spout. Looks late Victorian, but it's actually Man from Japan. Again, a 1980s piece. They have a bunch of press cut, but so does everybody. We just saw this pattern earlier, but this one actually has a russet colored flower on it. Nico Classic Collection, similar to the Imperial Ironstone we saw at the last thrift store. And this is a bunch of Alaska clay. A lot of these were homemade jobs. There's a salt and pepper that look like the Alaskan boots. Sometimes they're marked Alaska clay, which was a particular company, but they all have this look. This was popular to make around the 1980s. $9 for the 5 pieces. Now this might actually be the buy-in here.
for someone who had local interest in that. This is a pretty shape to that teapot. Fusionreuter, which is a good company out of Germany. Nice modern shape, sort of a traditional blue floral. $30 on the set of Anchor Hawking Sorrento snack dishes. Not a terrible price, but again, I don't really see room for resellers at a lot of these prices. This is hand-painted Nippon. There's all sorts of clothes, as there usually are in thrift stores, including a nice range of coats. One looks like it might be vintage. This one has a good look. Ferncroft made in USA. It looks like a knockoff of a Lily Ann from the period, but this is still from the 1970s, I would say. $17 is not a terrible price. We've got to move quickly through here because they close in about 10 minutes, but there's one. Okay, she just said 5 minutes, but there is one more place we can go after this. Some more housewares in here. Bristol, that's a spring blossom pattern. That's Japanese from the 60s or 70s. This is kind of a fun looking plate from its era. That looks like it was by Royal China, looking at the bottom of it. This guy's cute for the price. It would probably sell $229. These were made in the late 70s and early 80s. I think they're guesting from California, but he's got a chip.
I do keep trying back here because they do have a big discount every day. Today was 30% off everything. On some days of the week, it's more. Well, my last stop of the evening is the Centralia Goodwill. This is in a different region than the huge Goodwill that we went to in Seattle, but it has had good stuff in the past. All right, it's Goodwill time. Let's see what we've got.
Oh, this place is gussied up a bit since I was last here. All right, I don't know that there's any old games here or any old video games. There is a mini-size Light Bright, but I think by the time we get to mini-size, we're looking a little later in time because that's the newer Hasbro label. This has a vintage look, but you can tell by the very synthetic nature of this lace that it is not actually an old piece. It's pretty, though. Scarves and woven pieces similar to Afghans. Is this a vest? That could be fun. This might be like something Karen Carpenter would have worn back in the day, but it's actually just a small little blanket or throw. It's cute. The colors are definitely 70s, and it's $6. There's a Snoopy piece, but that is newer. I really look for the 1970s era peanut stuff mainly. Thrift stores are interesting places to learn because a certain amount is left to interpretation. You have to look at things and compare them to things you know and kind of figure it out because they're not going to tell you. They don't have time or need at these prices to do that kind of research. I like these type of rugs, but look at these because these are all brand new, and in a few years they won't look new. It's easy to be fooled. So good to look at new stuff when you see it that might be mistaken for old in not too much time. Christmas is springing forth everywhere. This is an older candlestick here, but it's a basic molded one. Cute. Nothing really special. From about 1950. I'm not sure what's going on with this animal. You just wonder why. But there is one thing on here that makes me realize I owe an apology for China. I keep saying, why do they keep ripping off our old stuff? Well, this says designed in the USA, made in China. So maybe we're ripping off our old stuff. Old handmade pew from about 1950 here. That's a nice, cute doll size. And in fact, it's probably actually a place to hold cookbooks in a kitchen, $7.99. We see these in this part of the country a lot because Northwest ethnography and smoked salmon boxes are both pretty common things. $5 is a good price, though. I have one out for sale for, I believe, $15 or $20. And eventually it will sell to someone who's a tourist who didn't get one of them back in the 80s and 90s when they were everywhere here. Cut crystal, that looks like the stuff they were selling in Costco 20 years ago, made in Poland. Good quality, just not old and not a particularly interesting pattern from a collector point of view. This flamingo is not an old 50s one.
And I don't even think it's an old 1980s one. I think it's even newer than that. So we're going to leave that. Little piece of brass. This one is from Saudi Arabia. I'm sure somebody went there as a tourist or on some sort of a government exchange and brought this back, $5. Lots of figurines. The Puerto Rican frog is cute with the mushroom, but this plastic placard makes me realize that it's not terribly, terribly old. This is older on the other hand. 1950s, I would guess. Looks like an American bisque bottom, $6.99. Ooh, the new card is out, but I don't see anything. Now there's something I like. It's a little worn on the gold, unfortunately, but this is a Hall key pot, and I like the polka dots. Nice airflow shield shape where it would keep the drips out. And it has the gold mark because of the old decoration. Just saw the same snack set at Seattle Goodwill. That's why I didn't buy it there. They're not that uncommon. Here's a bit of ridiculousness. It sort of looks old. The yellow handle doesn't, right? Then look at the bottom. The Pioneer Woman, made in China. From my frontier to yours, dishwasher is safe because, of course, every Pioneer Woman had a dishwasher. And look how it's already got a chip and the color is wearing off. Terrible. This is why I stick to the old stuff. These are silver electroplate, and they're cute. $9 though, just not a lot of room in it for me, and I do not find customers for the anniversary ones. On the other hand, my friend I'm staying with does not have a glass reamer. We were just talking about her needing to get one, but this is $10, and honestly, I would sell it for a little more if I had it in the store, but not much. So I think I'm going to wait and see if I have one in my inventory before I go buying this one. The little individual cream and sugar are Cambridge Caprice with that wonderful shell pattern from the 1940s. These are pretty reasonable. Only $3 for that one. Oh, but they're both sugar bowls. Darn. I see Blendo. Let's see what the condition is. It's a little worn on the gold. That's kind of a problem. Yeah, the color's a little worn too. It's only $5. This is a nice shape that looks like something from the 70s or 80s. It looks a little bit like some of the glass that was made by Imperial for Lenox. It's possible it's one of their patterns. Let's take a quick gander here for interesting frames for older art pieces. This is actually from an Alaskan cruise line, and it's only $4. And I recognize it because I've had this. This is actually a menu. And if I took this out of the frame, it would probably be worth double or more the $4. There's the back. I decided to take the back off so I could show you. Josephine Cumberland is a young Alaska artist, at least young when this was done back in the 1950s, and Smokey was one of the army dogs. See something decoupage back here. That's definitely a 70s look. $12.99. We saw a lot of marble like this come over in the 1980s from Thailand. $9.99. There was originally a pestle that went with it. A couple of lids that could be useful to some Pyrex fans if they had the bottoms. Older cookie jar in the middle here. I don't think this one is particularly valuable. It's a Japanese piece from the 30s, actually. It has a nice Art Deco style, but very basic. And then this is the McCoy cookie jug from about 1970. But again, they want $25. I don't get more than that in an antique store. Down on the bottom here, this spattered looking bowl. Not for food use, may poison food. So you can't really use it for anything practical. Again, what is the point? And yet you're supposed to grow your cactus in it. So it's fine to poison your cactus. I just don't understand. Back in the 70s, when words on things were first a popular thing, you had canisters that said what was in them, even though you could see. This is a French piece. $4. Plastic Fantastic Land here. A Tervis tumbler for Boise State. If I was in the Idaho area, I might consider picking that up for $3. Feels a little loose though, like somebody bashed it around a bit. And I think this is newer than it looks, yes, because it's a touch lamp.
Manager self-checkout, please. Manager self-checkout.
Garba is a German pottery company. Interesting how similar this looks in design in some ways to both Italian and Mexican pottery because of the looseness and freeness of the painting. Some people like to decorate with these molds, but unless they're really heavyweight, they're just not old enough for me because so many have been made over the last few decades that are very thin. Oh my, these are vintage. Are they good? Well, you tell me. Leave a comment. Are there any old appliances? These all look like they're newer. This is an older container for something. Let's see what's in here. It feels heavy, and it's $25. And it says it's hardware. Oh, it's a microscope. Very nice. Again, I don't think I would get a ton more for this microscope. It looks like a pretty ordinary one for a student. But an interesting thing to see in a Goodwill, at least. You do end up having to go down a lot of aisles to see everything in a thrift store potentially that might be vintage. And yes, you do get to kiss a lot of frogs. That folks shopping over there just found a Brother sewing machine in the original box. And I get the feeling that they're resellers too, but they're a little more general line. They were talking about looking for older things, but they found something that probably will sell for them. Here's a newer microscope, all plastic, so the other one looks a lot better by comparison. Clocks, anniversary clocks are a tough sell. They're finicky, they're easy to break. I avoid them these days. Well, let's see what we have in the book department. Uppity Women of Ancient Times. Cleopatra, the Queen of Assyria. This literally fell off the shelf at me. Cute little old parakeet book. And if it didn't have that crease, that would be worth buying. I've sold these before just because the graphics are fun. And you can learn to train your parakeet. There's the combination for you. Last Days of Sebastopol. I do see some older books down here. Shadow in the Pines. Looks like a children's book by Meter. Dave Barry Slept Here. I got a kick out of that book. A Rick Brandt electronic adventure. I don't know this series. It definitely has a similar cover to a lot of the other children's series of the day. Spindrift Island, 1947. Gulf to Rockies, the heritage of the Fort Worth and Denver, Colorado and Southern Railways. That's a very, very specific railroad title, and because it's so specific, it might actually have value. I think we'll take a moment to look at that. The dust jacket being torn is a minus, but this is an obscure book that a certain group of collectors are looking for. If it was signed, it says to David Jones from Joe McDermott, but that is not the person who wrote the book. If it was signed by the person who wrote the book, I'm seeing prices around $20 on them. I'm pleased to see a bunch of vintage books at Goodwill. I don't really run into that very often. China's Red Army Marches. That's in poor condition, though. Here we go. Yes, this is right after the Kinsey report came out. There were all sorts of symposiums and restatements of the Kinsey report because it was salacious and they could make money, I think, mainly. But just that cover is enough to sell that. The Weight of the Gold by Steel. This looks like it was, yes, an old Pierce County library book. We are in the region that is served by Pierce County. Tacoma is the headquarters store for this one. And they are talking about gold prospecting in northeastern Washington, way up in the corner north of Spokane. Because it's local, it could be signed. Always is worth taking a second just to see, but not in this case. Usually a library book wouldn't be. The Tell It Make It Look by Sherry Lewis of Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop, I believe, but this one's in terrible condition, unfortunately. Dedicated to the Girl Scouts and Troop 90 of Beverly Hills. So there really is a Beverly Hills Girl Scout group. Dust jackets can make a difference in value. These are not in great shape. Folk dances and games could be something interesting. This looks like a 1920s book from the binding. We'll see if it has illustrations. The spine is cracked and there's loose pages. So the book might be worth more for its illustrations separated from the book. They're cute, but they look like they're black and white. This is 1909, actually. So even a little earlier than I thought. Oh, it's actually a lot of music as opposed to a lot of pictures. Okay. Ah, yes, every time there is a presidential election, we get a book and another book and another book and another book and another. For the most part, a lot of those books are soon forgotten, but if you can find them with signatures in them, then they can be worth a little bit of money. I see they connected the baby Jesus so he won't fall out or get stolen. What is up with stealing the baby Jesus out of the crash? Is that a good idea? Well, this was a fun, unexpected ramble through the day, and we went to a bunch of sales and thrift stores and had a good time and found pretty much something at every single one. Nothing really amazing, but it just shows you that if you get out there and you hunt, you can find plenty of things to resell that collectors really enjoy in all sorts of categories.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.